Did you know that Kaiju was a thing? I just found out that it's a yearly art challenge where every day for the month of June, you design yourself a new kaiju. And while admittedly I'm A, a little late to that, and B, will not be drawing kaiju today, I will be taking kaiju and turning them into predators, which is a video idea by Sneaky Raptor Squad that you all wanted to see as based on the live stream polls. And so today I'll be taking 3 kaiju and turning them into Yaoja. With all that out of the way, I think it's time we finally got into it. Let's create some chaos! Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Collectionary of the Mysterious. I am Ivan Acclu, and I will be showcasing several alien artifacts that I've come across. A small group of people were awkwardly standing together inside Ivan's apartment, trying their best not to bump into the many glass cases that were placed randomly around the room. All of the artifacts that we'll be looking at today come from an elite race of alien hunters. They are extremely dangerous, and as such, the fact that I have any of these items in my possession is nothing short of a miracle. If they're so dangerous of a species, then how did you get them? Ah, you have quite the curious mind. Be careful, that could be a useful tool, but also a dangerous weapon. How I came across these artifacts is a story perhaps best saved for another time. Let's begin the tour, shall we? Ivan began walking towards a section of the room where the cases were not only more spread out, but each one had its own designated light shining on it. The curious group of members circled around a case that Ivan stood in front of. First up, we have the broken blade from the wrist gauntlet of one of these hunters. This hunter was well known for his use of bladed weapons and close-range combat. As you can see, this blade has a sharp curve to it, in addition to being lined with small teeth. This allowed the hunter to hook onto prey and maintain its grip so that they couldn't slip away. Additionally, like almost all the hunters in this species, known collectively as Yaoja, this one has a visor that allows it to read heat signatures and detect the movements of its prey. The Yaoja that this blade belongs to was known in their clan as Gaigan and was known to hunt alongside other hunters. One well-known instance, Gaigan teamed up with another hunter named Ghidorah to try and hunt a race of giant lizards to extinction. They were almost successful, but the leader of one of the tribes of the giant lizards, named Gojira, was able to deploy a plan to fend them off, with a little bit of help. We'll get to that later. Both Gaigan and Ghidorah were badly injured, but were able to retreat and recover. However, their defeat made them a disgrace amongst the other Yaoja, and they submitted themselves for punishment as per Yaoja code. So, I'll come clean right out the gate. I was very nervous about making this one because I don't know anything about kaiju or predators. I mean, I know a little bit of kaiju because I did the Kaiju Power Rangers for the Godzilla collab, but predators, just completely new to me. I've never seen a Predator movie. I've never read any of the media. It just no exposure to it whatsoever. So I knew the designs would be a little tricky because they were a little more detailed, but I knew the story was going to be a huge challenge. And luckily, throwing in a specific narrator, this case Ivan Acclu, it takes some of the weight off of that lore that you have to adhere to for both IPs, and you can throw in a little bit of banter. Usually I have, as you can tell, I've got little minor characters that interject every now and then just to push the story along a little bit more. But overall, I'm actually really happy with how this design came out. I was very unsure about the pose because I feel like it's been a long while since I've done a really dynamic pose. Like, a lot of what I've been doing lately is just kind of standing, just like, here's a 3/4 shot, some kind of pose. Whereas there were a lot of times in the past where I've done like arms outstretched and foreshortening and stuff. And this was another one of those. So getting back into that was a little nerve-wracking, but overall, like, it came out so much better than I was expecting to. I had some reference images and it was really easy to now like match up how the muscles connected with each other and how each limb should be in its foreshortened state. And overall, the background too on this one, I absolutely love. There's a sense of depth to it that I don't think I've been able to capture before in any of my previous pieces with the backgrounds. And it was really just as simple as putting in a gradient for the background and then doing different layers of trees further back, getting closer and closer to that gradient color the further back they went. So they were kind of just like blending into the background the further you went. And then the addition of the light rays from the back also made it look like, okay, this up until this point, this is the foreground, and then everything back here is being washed out by the light. And it just worked out so much better than I was expecting, since I was really just kind of shooting blind and seeing what would work. But let's check out Gaigan as a predator. Moving to our next exhibit, we have the wings from one of these hunters who was known as Mothlight. Now, since you're all here today, I assume you share a common interest in alien species alongside myself. So if you do have any prior knowledge of the Yaoja, you'll know that wings, and by extension the ability of flight, is not part of their normal arsenal. While that is correct, this is a rare member of the species that did have wings, and utilized them to stalk her prey from above, diving at them with a combi stick when they let their guard down. However, this did not remain the case for long. While Mothlight is indeed part of this hunter species, she was soon one of the few who violated the Yaoja honorary code and became considered an insult of Yaoja culture, otherwise known as bad blood. Bad bloods are hunted down by the rest of the Yaoja and are to be destroyed on sight. Therefore, instead of hunting for prey, Mothlight quickly became the hunted. I'm sure you are all curious to know what circumstances led to the exile and blood hunt of Mothlight. Well, you see, I've already set that up in the previous exhibit, Storytelling 101. You see, the aforementioned race of giant lizards that Gaig and Ghidorah tried to exterminate was not defended by just Gojira. In an unlikely turn of events, Gojira was aided by Mothlight, who showed sympathy for Gojira and his race. By attacking another hunter unprovoked, Mothlight was then branded as bad blood. But you said Gaig and Ghidorah also failed their task to annihilate the giant lizards. Doesn't failure in the hunt also brand the offending Yaoja as bad blood? Great question. Yes, under normal circumstances, Gaig and Ghidorah would also become bad blood following their failure. However, when they returned to Yaoja Prime, they were given the chance to redeem themselves, which is quite a rare occurrence. If they were to successfully hunt Mothlight and return with her head, their status as honorable hunters would be restored. Knowing that Mothlight was highly skilled and that, with Gojira by her side, their chances of succeeding were low, Gaig and Ghidorah devised a plan to use extra help to give them a leg up in the hunt. Although I was nervous going into this video as a whole, I feel like I've come out of this particular video as a better artist, if that makes sense. Coming out of this particular drawing, the two things I'm really proud of are the wings and the legs, which are two areas in my drawing that I often struggle with. And I feel like after the community redraw a couple of weeks ago, after doing Dragonard the Bomb's character, which was a dragon, so I had to include wings and less humanoid legs, I have a better understanding of how the muscles look. And I mentioned this in the last one. I have a better sense now of like how they interconnect with one another, and how the shoulder leads down into the, well, this is arms, not legs, but how the shoulder leads down into the bicep and into the forearm and stuff like that. And by extension, the leg ones, I just don't really know leg muscle names. I guess calves and knees and thighs. So I did know leg muscle names. Anyway, for this drawing, there's a lot of Mothra iterations that I could have chose from to use as the base inspiration. And I wound up going with the 2003 movie Godzilla Tokyo SOS's design as the main reference, while also sprinkling in some Godzilla x Kong for the lore, since the next kaiju coming up is from a very different era from this one and Gaigan. But we'll get to that later. And the only thing I would like to fix, although I mentioned I liked the background work in the last one, the one thing I would fix here is the treetops along the bottom. I wanted to make it look like Mothra was soaring over the trees, stalking her prey, and you could just see like the tops of the tree canopy on the bottom. However, it did end up looking more like stones than it did bushes and stuff. And I think part of that was because as I was trying to fade more trees into the background, on that second back layer, I went with a purple. Like I went so far away from the green and tried to blend it into the background with a purple, and that gave it a more gray than green look, thereby just making the entire bottom sixth or so of the drawing look more rigid and stone-like than fluffy leaves. Now, they're by no means bad. If I was going for stones, they would look really good. But I wasn't going for stones, I was going for trees. But other than that, I really love how this one turned out. Let's take a look at Mothra as a predator. And moving to our next exhibit, we have Right. Full disclaimer, everyone, the collectionary has not been doing too well in terms of revenue lately, so I've opted to renting out some spaces for advertisements. This one right here is a website where artistic posters can be purchased, including artistic renditions of the creatures showcased in this tour. You can find a hyperlink to said website down on the comment plaque below, as well as previews of some of the other posters available for purchase on this website. Thank you for bearing with the brief intermission. Now let's continue with the actual tour. And now if you'll just follow me this way. Mr. Acclu, what is it? Are you ever going to finish the story from the previous two exhibits? Ye of little faith. You think that I would show you 3 random artifacts that aren't related to each other? If you would just wait about 3 more steps, you'll find the answers you're looking for. 1, 2, 3. Ah, here we are. Ivan stopped in front of another case, this one holding a sharp-looking stone that seemed to be emitting a faint blue glow. This right here is an ice shard that was used to control the Yaoja named Ice Breath. Like Mothlight, Ice Breath is another special case. She is unlike other Yaoja in the way that she was genetically altered. You see, a Yaoja scientist wanted to create a hunter with supernatural abilities so they could rely on more than just their weapons during the hunt, ensuring a victory each and every time. As you can undoubtedly guess from the name, Ice Breath had the ability to expel icy blast from her maw. However, the Yaoja scientist in question never intended for Ice Breath to be released for a hunt. The exact reason for this is unknown. Some believe it was to keep the power for himself, but frankly I find the reasoning to be irrelevant. The point is, Ice Breath was essentially a prisoner of the scientist. Gaig and Ghidorah had heard rumors about Ice Breath and the scientist hiding out on a much colder planet not too far from Yaoja Prime. You see, while they can survive in colder climates, the hunters prefer a warmer, more tropical setting. In order to ensure their victory against Mothlight and Gojira, the two Bad Bloods took a trip to the scientist's base of operations in an attempt to kidnap Ice Breath. In the lab, they found this crystal, and when they pointed it at Ice Breath, she would writhe in pain, but also obey whatever their next command would be. The two Bad Bloods figured this was just what they needed in order to defeat Mothlight and Gojira, so they took Ice Breath and... Suddenly, a faint ringing came from Ivan's pocket. He reached inside and pulled out a flip phone that appeared to be covered in random wires and tech parts. Apologies, everyone. This will just be a second. Hello? Speaking. Really? You want to meet today? Yes. Yes, I can do that. I do apologize, everyone. Something very urgent has come up and I must be going. If you would please make your way to the exit. So you're just not going to tell us what happened to Gaig, Mothlight, or any of the other hunters? Indeed. Long story short, Gaig and Ghidorah, along with Ice Breath, attacked Mothlight and Gojira. A big battle went on for a little bit, and now Gaig and Ghidorah are dead. Thank you all for your curiosity. Feel free to come back again soon for more mysteries. Ivan pushed the last of the tour group out of his apartment and closed the door. He took a deep breath and surveyed the now quiet room. The day has come. My first live exhibit. Ivan reopened the door and stepped out of the collectionary. Now, although this was the last drawing of the episode, this was actually the first drawing I kind of did. I got to like the flatting stage before I had to stop working for the day. And then as soon as the next day rolled around, I'm like, well, it makes more sense to start the next one, finish that in the first half of the day, and then come back and finish this one in the second half of the day after I've had like lunch. I didn't really know where I was going for this one. Like, I started drawing this before I had the lore or what I was going to do with the lore in place. But I knew that I wanted Shimo the Shimo Predator to be captured, since a big part of the Godzilla x Kong movie was that Shimo was a prisoner of Scar King and was under his control from the shard thing. So I wanted to incorporate that into the design and then into the lore. And originally the lore was going to be Shimo's captured because Ivan Acclu got his hands on a live specimen, which just kind of actually ended up being the cliffhanger for whatever alien episode I do next. Speaking of the lore, I did take a few creative liberties at this point in the story, making Shimo a genetically modified predator to give her Yaoja counterpart supernatural abilities, and then justify why the highly skilled hunter was chained up. But on the other hand, this is the drawing where the story kind of shifts away from the kaiju as predators portion and goes more into the Ivan Acclu portion. So I think whatever I needed to get there would be okay in order to push Ivan's story forward a little more. All that being said, I can really feel my background work. I mentioned this in the last two, but like I really feel my background work getting better with each episode I do that contains backgrounds. If you go back to Blood Red Riding Hood or even the Poppy Playtime Variety episode and compare the backgrounds in those two episodes to the backgrounds in this one and Murder Drones as Dragons, I think you can see a definite shift in quality from those two to the last two that I've done. But that being said, let's take a look at the final drawing of the episode. I gotta say, this turned out so much better than I expected. Thank you so much to A, Sneaky Raptor Squad, and B, the stream chat for voting on this topic, because this is not something I would have thought to do on my own, based on the severe lack of knowledge I have on both of these franchises, but it was a lot of fun to do. And if you enjoyed this video, then I highly recommend you check out some of Ivan Acclu's other videos, or even try out my Turning Things into Demons series, both of which will be linked next to me. And that's all I've got for you today. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to hit the like and subscribe button. My name is KyngPin Creations, and I will see you all in the next video. Take care, everybody.